Okay, Year 10, we're going to look at something called changing the subject of the formula, which is part of the equations topic. Now, in a formula, the pronumeral which is by itself is called the subject of the formula. So, in this lesson, we're going to look at changing the subject of the formula, which means making a different letter in the formula as the subject. So, let's have a look. So, here we got the formula for the area of the circle. Now the pronumeral by itself is the capital A. This is called the subject of the formula. So what we're going to look at in this lesson is changing the subject of the formula to a different letter. So for example, in this question, we could change the subject to R. Alright? So let's have a look at a simple example. So we've got to make A the subject for this formula, V equals U plus AT. This is actually a physics equation for velocity. So I'm going to make A the subject. So I'm going to get the A by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract U. I'm going to get rid of the U. That gets V minus U equals AT. And then there's a time sign in between the A and the T. So I'm going to divide by T, both sides, cancels. And then you can see here, our final answer, A equals V minus U on T. Okay, so A is now the subject of the formula. It's all by itself. Okay? Copy all that down. You might even want to have a go at the next question by yourself. You can pause the video at any time. Alright, now for this question, I'm just going to write it out again so I can draw on top of it. Now I've got to make the H the subject of the formula. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of the fraction. Now, to get rid of that denominator, I'm going to multiply both sides by the denominator of the fraction. That allows me to cancel the 2's there, and I get 2a equals bh. Now I've got to get the h by itself. It says change the subject to h. So I've got to get this by itself. Now remember there's a time sign in between those two. So I'm going to divide by b. Divide by b, the b's cancel, and I'm left with h equals 2a over b. Okay, so you can see now that h is the subject of the formula. Right, what about part b? V squared equals u squared plus 2as. Now we're going to change the subject of the formula to s. Okay, there's an s, not a 5. So first thing I'm going to do here is write the question down again so I can draw on top of it. So v squared equals u squared plus 2as. I'm trying to get this letter by itself. So I'm going to subtract u squared from both sides this time. That gives me v squared minus u squared equals 2as. Now there's a time sign in between those two. I'm just going to divide both sides by 2a now. Both sides by 2a. That means the 2a's cancel. And that gives me the s by itself. So s is equal to v squared minus u squared on 2a. Okay, that's an a there. Let's tidy it up. Okay, so now s is the subject of the formula. That is not a 5, by the way, it's an s. So S is the subject of the formula. So copy all that down. And then we're going to have a look at part C. Now this is a harder question. We've got to change the subject of the formula to A. But notice there is 2 A's here. 2 A's. Now, we're going to use kind of a similar technique to the previous example, or the first one there, part A. We're going to get rid of the fraction, which means we're going to multiply both sides by the denominator. So I'm going to write this question out again. This is a harder question. Now I want to get rid of the denominator, so I'm going to multiply both sides. I'm going to use brackets as well. Need brackets because there's 2 terms involved in the multiplication. These 2 terms. Now that allows me to cancel the denominator, makes the question easier for me. So now I've got a plus 2 is equal to k brackets a plus 10. Okay. Alright, what do you think we're going to do next? well, let's expand the brackets. That's what we can do next. So A plus 2 is equal to K, A plus 10K. Okay, now I'm trying to get the A's by itself. So I'll try and get the A onto the other side there. So what I'm going to do is minus Ka from both sides. That gives you A minus Ka plus 2 is equal to 10K. And I just want to have the A terms on one side, so then I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And that gives me A minus Ka is equal to 10K minus 2. Now I've got all the A terms on one side, right? So what I can do is factorise here. So I'm going to take out an A as a common factor. Now A times by 1 is A, and A times by minus K is minus Ka. And last of all, I can divide by 1 minus K. Divide by 1 minus K. Okay? So that allows me to cancel those common factors there. And then I get my answer. A is equal to 10K minus 2 on 1 minus K. So there you go. We've made A the subject of the formula. Alright, so this is definitely one of the harder questions, but you can see we've stuck to the same techniques as before. To get rid of the denominator, I multiplied both sides of the fraction by the denominator. Alright, then I expanded the brackets. Then I used subtraction in this case to get the A terms on the same side of the equation. Then I factorised, and then I divided to get the A by itself. So definitely a harder question. There'll be a couple of those in the exercise. They do take a bit of practice. Now I'm just going to look at 2 more questions for you. Another harder one and this one as well. So let's write the next one down. Okay, so this will be part, I'll do this as question D. Okay, so this will be part D. It'll be change the subject of x equals b squared minus 4ac to b. Okay. So we want to make B the subject here. Now let's write the question down again. Now we want to get the B by itself, so we've got to get rid of that square root. The opposite of square rooting is squaring. So I'm going to square both sides. That gives me x squared is equal to B squared minus 4ac. So the power of 2 cancels out the square root. Then add 4ac to both sides, and you're going to get x squared plus 4ac is equal to b squared. And then to get rid of the square root, to get rid of the power of 2, we've got a square root. Now when you do the square root, you're going to have to put plus or minus. Okay, so when you take the square root of an equation, you plus or minus on one side. So that gives me b is equal to plus or minus the square root of x squared plus 4ac. And that's your answer. B is the subject. Okay, so just a couple of things there. Squaring gets rid of the square root, and square rooting gets rid of the power of 2. And when you take the square root, you must put the plus or minus there. Alright? Now, copy that down, and we'll look at one more question. Okay, so this is part E. Alright, change the subject of 1 over x equals 1 over r plus 1 over k to r. So we've got to make r the subject. That means we've got to get this all by itself. So let's write the question out again. So 1 over x equals 1 over r plus 1 over k. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is get this term by itself. So I'm going to subtract 1 over k, subtract 1 over k. That gives me 1 over x minus 1 over k equals 1 over r. Rightio. Now, I'm going to get common denominators now. I'm going to make this a single fraction with one denominator. Now, times by k, times by k. Times by x, times by x. Right, that gives me k over xk minus x over, and k times x is just xk as well, equals 1 over r. And you can see I've got a common denominator. Now that means I can express this fraction with a single denominator, xk, and then k minus x equals 1 over r. Okay, now, next step, I'm going to take the reciprocal of both sides, which means I'm going to flip both sides. Take the reciprocal of both sides. Right, that means flip both sides, so I can say that xk over k minus x is equal to r over 1. Now r over 1 is just r, isn't it? So there's my answer. Done. Alright? Now some of you might be saying, how can I flip the fraction? Well, think about it. If I have, let's say, a half is equal to 3 over 6. Now if I flip both fractions, I still get a true statement, don't I? 2 over 1 is the same as 6 over 3, isn't it? 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 divided by 1 is 2. So you can flip both sides of the equation and still get a true statement. So when you get to one fraction equal to another fraction, you can flip both sides. It's called taking the reciprocal. That's probably another harder one as well. So make sure all that's copied down and then get started on the questions.